years of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, a resolution that forever changed how the world views women's roles in peace and security. Now, from peace building to leadership, from protection to participation, Uganda has been a champion in translating this global vision into national action. Over the next hour, we shall unpack the progress, the lessons, and the future of the Women, Peace and Security agenda in Uganda through the voices of those leading the charge. You can go to our social media platforms, that is NTV Uganda, and be part of the conversation. In studio, I have wonderful guests who are going to have this conversation with us. And on my far left is Angela Nakafero, Commissioner from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Ms. Angela, welcome to the show.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hosting us.
All right. Ms. Dr. Paulina Chwangu, UN Women Country Representative in Uganda. Paulina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting us.
I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yes, very right.
Perfect. And in pink as well is Miss Marian Akumu, Head of Office at the International Center of Transitional Justice. Marian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And Ruth Ojiambo Cheng, a veteran peace activist and civil society leader. Ruth, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, we are marking 25 years of the United Nations Social Security Resolution 1325, a milestone for women, peace and security. To begin, I'd like each of you to reflect briefly on Uganda's journey so far. And I think I'll start with you, Ms. Angela. Ms. Angela, from the government side of view, what would you describe as Uganda's most transformative achievements under the Women, Peace and Security agenda?
Thank you very much. Uganda's journey is a very interesting one towards peace and security, but particularly so for women, peace and security. We have a history of conflicts and wars. So for us, going through all series of wars, and today we are able to say we have relative peace in the country, it's a very interesting journey. It is an interesting journey to the fact that Uganda has not only maintained peace within its borders, Uganda has also supported peace building, conflict resolution, ending of wars in other countries. I wouldn't want to really point out, but these are many. Uganda has been in Somalia. Uganda was in Rwanda,
yes,
actively in Rwanda. Uganda has been in Burundi. Uganda is in DRC, even up to now, maintaining peace and regional integration. Uganda has played a critical role in South Sudan. I know South Sudan has not yet maintained a relative peace, but Uganda's presence has supported so many ways in terms of ensuring that South Sudan got its independence and they were able to embark on development. Internally, Uganda is hosting 1.95 million refugees from different parts of the world. You'll be surprised that we have people from Ukraine in Uganda. We have Somalis. We have South Sudan. We have Congolese. They've found a second home in Uganda. So for me, it's a very interesting journey that shows that there's power when the country decides to build peace. It's an experience of resilience. Ugandans have been very resilient all through those wars and conflicts. They've not given up on their country. They continue to build Uganda as a nation. And of course, commitment from the government of Uganda towards peace. When I turn to women, peace and security, as a country, we are now implementing our third National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. When the Security Council Resolution 1325 was adopted, Uganda in 2008 embarked on its first National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. Registered some progress and achievements. Today we are implementing the third National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, which shows commitment towards women, peace and security in Uganda.
Indeed. Ms. Paulina, I want to come to you. We are reflecting on Uganda's journey so far. From the perspective of UN Women's, how does Uganda progress compare regionally and globally?
Thank you for the question. From UN Women's perspective, the Uganda story with the 1325 resolution is really a true story at the global level and at the regional level. It's a story of leadership. Uganda have shown leadership. So it's a story of commitment which all of us need to be proud of. And if we need to understand Uganda's position, we have to go back to the beginning. Uganda, as the Commissioner mentioned, Uganda was among the first countries in Africa to develop its own national action plan for implementation of 1325. And Uganda have been a model, as I mentioned, regional and also globally, for implementing 1325. Why do we say Uganda is a model? Uganda is a model because of its inclusive processes, because of strong structures, and also because of local impact. Inclusive process, Uganda's approach is highly participatory, bringing together government, civil society organization, development partners to work together on the peace and process agenda. Strong structure, we see Uganda have a robust coordination system which are led by the Ministry of Gender, which is the best practice that many other countries actually wanted to learn from Uganda and have been coming to Uganda to learn this model. Local impact, this is also, it's very critical. Uganda is globally celebrated for localizing this agenda. And we'll talk more as we go along, so I'll just stop there.
All right.
Thank you.
Marion, I'm coming to you. Still, we are reflecting on the journey. From the lens of transitional justice, how has the 1325 influenced Uganda's peace and accountability frameworks?
Thank you, Idris. I think as the Commissioner rightly mentioned, Uganda is a country, like many others across Africa, that has a history that's replete with conflict and violence. And especially following the long conflict with after the conflict with the Lord's Resistance Army, it was recognized that there was a need to apply a different approach to addressing both the underlying causes of the conflict as well as the after effects of the conflict. And that's when Uganda began its transitional justice journey. And again, reflecting on what Dr. Paulina has mentioned, Uganda was a leader, being one of the very first countries on the continent to implement a national transitional justice policy. And this was in 2009. Cabinet passed the policy where it recognized that we need to reflect on what are the causes of conflict throughout our history as a nation. What do we need to do to address them to ensure that we can have a future of peace? And among the key mechanisms that are addressed are issues of formal and informal justice. As a country, we realized that you can only prosecute so many people for violence. So we need to apply other methods. So we then said, well, we have local mechanisms, the informal justice mechanisms. How can we engage with cultural leaders, cultural institutions to address some of these underlying issues? You need to find ways of repairing the harm that people have suffered during conflict. A key segment of the population that we work with as the International Center for Transitional Justice are survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. You know, during the conflict with the LRA, young girls were abducted, many of them forced to become wives of the rebels. Many of them gave birth to children. And even 20 decades later, they're still dealing with the after effects of this. So how can you as a society ensure that they get justice for the violations that they've suffered and that you in some way, shape or form repair the harm that they've done? And so in that way, transitional justice and 1325 are important in that they put at the heart of them the need to center the experiences of survivors of conflict, involve women as agents of change, both during peacetime and during peacetime, conflict, and in the aftermath, and ensure that we create systems that make it that we don't have conflict in the future.
Indeed. Yeah. Ruth Cheng,
Yes, please.
you as someone who's worked directly with women mediators, have you seen women's roles evolve in peace building over the years?
I will say yes, and just to confirm what my colleagues have said, all that they have said, the women have been at the center of everything that they have said, be it implementation of the NAP, be it the justice system. And I want actually to remind you that the Uganda women started this whole peace mediation and resolution, conflict resolution, way back before even the resolution was in place. When we met in Beijing, that's when all of us as women activists realized that there is something critical that we need to put in place when we talk about women in situations of armed conflict. And from that day, the journey of women's organizations in this country has been to broaden the perception of what peace is. And the question was mediation. You know, women do their mediation because it is always informal. They do it quietly in their spaces. Sadly, nobody has recognized that. I'll give you an example. When Konyi was fighting in northern Uganda, and it has never been known that women in northern Uganda went door by door mediating with their fellow women to bring back the boys and girls who had been abducted, enabling them to understand why peace was at the center of everything. When we went to eastern Uganda, the same thing. So even up to today, women are mediating. Sadly, and that's what saddens me, is that their informal approach, which has actually brought the peace we are talking about, has not been recognized. And they do it day in, day out. One would even argue that Uganda is not in war anymore. So where are these mediations being practiced? They are practiced in refugee camps, it is the women. They are practiced in institutions, it is the women. I want to assure you, until the world and until Africa and Uganda in particular recognizes the power that women have in peace building, conflict resolution, mediations, we shall remain in the cycle.
Ms. Angela, coming to you, for someone who has never heard of the resolution 135, we are celebrating 25 years. How would you describe this resolution and what does it stand for?
Thank you very much. The resolution 1325 stands for, we call them the 3 Ps. Stands for prevention of armed conflicts and of course sexual gender-based violence as a weapon of war. You know what happened in northern Uganda, women will be raped and girls will be defiled in addition to the murders. It stands for participation of women in peace building. And my mother, my sister Ruth has elaborated on that. Women working behind the scenes to promote peace and security. This week I was in Karamoja. Women played a critical role in disarmament in Karamoja. They will talk to their spouses, please hand over the gun. They will talk to their sons, please don't go cattle raiding. That is the peace we are talking about. We are talking about protection of women's rights during conflicts, even without conflicts. Women's fundamental human rights definitely must be protected. The right to security is important. Without security, we cannot develop as a country. Right to education, right to health services, right to humanitarian assistance, even when there's conflict, and of course, right to post-conflict development. We are also talking about support in terms of humanitarian assistance and relief. Women have special needs that definitely have to be looked into when we are talking about humanitarian assistance. We are happy that in Uganda this has been prioritized. We are talking about prevention and response to gender and gender-based violence. We don't want to see women being raped in the process. And for us to do that, there's quite a lot that is required. But also when we are responding to some of those cases, it's important that as part of the humanitarian assistance, those services are catered for. I would also like to put another P, the P on partnership building. Peace in Uganda has not only been achieved because of government, but because other partners are supporting government. I'm in charge of implementing the third National Action Plan on women, peace and security in Uganda. We are able to achieve what my sisters are talking about because we work as partners. Government working closely with development partners, our donors, they've been very key. And at this point, I would like to appreciate the government of Norway, the government of Japan, and others that have been supporting us. We are working closely with the religious leaders. By the way, religion plays a very big role in terms of peace building and development. The sermons the religious leaders make every day contribute to peace building. They may not be at the forefront, but they're changing people's mindset. Our traditional leaders, they're also on board. Civil society organization, we work closely with the women organization. The Women International Peace Center that Ruth at one point was leading, by then it was called ISIS Wiki. ISIS Wiki was among the women organizations that were talking about peace in Uganda, including the design of the PRDP that we implemented in northern Uganda. We have so many. We have Oxfam, we have WARNET. We work closely with the situation room, which is implemented by the Women International Peace Center. So quite a lot, and COACT has been key in terms of localizing the third National Action Plan.
Okay.
So far, 20 districts in Uganda, especially those that are prone to conflicts at the borders of South Sudan, DRC, the side of Rwanda, they've localized our third National Action Plan, and they're helping us to reach the communities, the households, in terms of the right information and awareness on why we need peace, sustainable peace in Uganda.
Doctor, when you look back, what would you say were the main factors that needed this resolution to be in place? And earlier on, you talked about the model that Uganda created that other countries are picking from. What would you say is another success story that Uganda has really championed and put forward under the resolution?
I think from what we have been discussing so far, we already see that Uganda have a very, very strong foundation.
Yeah.
A foundation that have been building gradually over the years. So we have quite a number of things which I think Uganda have done and maybe need to continue doing. Deepening the impact and adapting to new challenges, because we do have new challenges which we need to see what we can do. And I think Uganda they have done it, but they need to do more. They need to turn commitment into financial commitment. And it's about time that we have to look inward to try to find our own local resources, because we live in a context now where resources are becoming scarce and scarce. And the commissioner have commended some of the donors that have been holding our hands, through the past few years. like the government of Norway, the government of Japan, the government of Austria. So we need to invest more. We need to make sure that what Uganda have done, she mentioned the localization where we have 20 districts, and out of those 20 districts, UN Women is working out with 16. So the Uganda need to continue deepening local roots, because that's what makes Uganda really stand out globally. People want to learn about, you know, how Uganda is deepening the agenda at the district level. And also empowering the next generation. Uganda have done that, but I think they need to invest more. We need to be more intentionally on the young women, because they're the next generation. And without investing to the next generation, the investment that we have achieved, we have gained so far, can go at lost. And the other thing which Uganda have done, but they need to do more, is become more data-driven, because we need data in the work that, yes, exactly. So we need to do that. And also we need to confront the new frontiers of conflict. Madam Commissioner have talked a lot about, you know, the history of conflict in Uganda, northern Uganda, and so on. But we see more and more there are new frontiers of conflict. So we need to apply gender lens to emerging threats, like climate security, digital theft, violent extremism. Those are things that Uganda needs to pay more attention.
Indeed. And Doctor, thank you for driving us towards figuring out the gaps that are missing in improving and also sustaining this resolution in Uganda. And I'll come to you, Mariam. How can transitional justice mechanisms better address the needs of women survivors of conflict-related sexual violence?
Thank you, Idris. I think first it's important to recognize that we've made some progress.
Indeed.
We've seen, as the Commissioner has highlighted, Uganda has put in place various legal and policy frameworks to address issues of gender-based violence, because we know this is also a continuum. That whatever happens during conflict, it's because it happens also during peacetime, and it just gets exacerbated during conflict. And therefore, it's important for us to address even everyday drivers of GBV within our societies. And we've made a lot of progress here. We've seen, for example, I know there's been special GBV court sessions that are set up to address issues of accountability. That's also an important prevention mechanisms. We've seen the integration of gender within policy and planning, and even within the transitional justice space, the specific needs of women and girls and children are taken into consideration when designing of the programming. But even as we acknowledge the progress that we've made, we also have to recognize that there are still some gaps. For example, while we have a national transitional justice policy, we don't have an enabling law which will actually ensure that the policy is properly implemented. And that's one of our asks of government, because we think that will be an important step towards really institutionalizing some of the aspects of the policy. We believe it's also important to, Dr. Paulina mentioned the aspects of financing. We know that this is an issue across the board, both with implementation of the transitional justice programming, but even response to issues of gender and GBV. And therefore we ask the government to actualize its commitment, because it has shown its commitment in other ways through the policies and the legal frameworks. But this will be truly felt if we actually have financing for many of these aspects. And I think it's also important that in our approach, we look at this holistically, because especially when you're addressing the needs of survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. This week I was actually in a Namuru meeting with some groups who we work with, and hearing their stories. You know, these are women who were abducted as young girls, have had children, have tried to come back to their homes, but because of issues of stigma and discrimination, have not been able to go back home to reintegrate into society. Many of them, as a result of the conflict, were not able to go to school, so they don't have education. which also limits their opportunities. They do not have access to resources to be able to start their own businesses. They don't have access to land where they can then farm and be able to take care of their children. And therefore, when you're addressing the needs of such a person, it has to be holistic, because that person will have psychosocial needs, they'll have socioeconomic needs, issues of discrimination, they'll have economic needs. Many of them would want to have the opportunity to learn how to read and write. And I mentioned the aspect of children born of war. These are children who are born as a result of the conflict. And many of them are now, they've in essence inherited the trauma and the challenges of their mothers. So you now have actually a second generation that, while has not been directly part of the conflict, but is still being impacted by the conflict. They're still facing the effects of it. And this is not just in northern Uganda. We know even in, it was mentioned in Luwero, in the Rwenzori regions, in the east, because as we know, we're a country that has a long history of conflict. There's almost no part of the country that has not been touched by conflict. So you'll find that while these issues are more magnified in the north because of the very long conflict we've had, it actually cuts across.
Trickles down.
Yes, exactly. But I think it's also important, as I mentioned, some of the progress we've made, and even in terms of prosecutions. We've had two major prosecutions, one at the International Criminal Court of Dominic Ongwen, and then here locally of Thomas Coelho at the International Crimes Division of the High Court of Uganda. And both of them recognized the role and the impact of sexual violence and awarded reparations to survivors. And so when we're talking about government processes and interventions that can support these, there are ways in which government can ensure that these reparations are implemented in a way that further support and build the resilience of survivors. Because as we know, if we don't address these issues, they risk becoming triggers for another conflict.
Ms. Ruth?
Yes, please.
For someone who works with these people, from civil society point of view, what still holds back women from meaningful participation in peace processes?
Thank you. The power sharing. Because most times when we are talking about peace issues, we tend to focus them on peace within the context of war. And now when we look at Uganda, we are not at war. Yeah. So most times we tend to be brushed aside because the kind of peace we are talking about as women is that we have broadened the perspective of what peace is. And we are not seeing ourselves being brought to the table, much as we actually hold the peace that we have here in Uganda. Until we start to recognize that women are key to any peace process, we are not going to move away from what it is. That is one point. The other, excuse me, the other aspect that is holding the women is most times the thinking that what women do in peace building is soft in nature. Whereas the softness, and I think it is Dr. Pauline who said it, the softness is the part of the key issue in humanity. If you don't deal with the issues that are soft, and you expect to only deal with the issues of the wars, the army fighting, doing all sorts of quelling crises where they are, and you don't deal with what my colleague has talked about, the social aspects of a human being. Mental health, and that's where I was coming from. The reason we are still lagging behind is, and one psychologist said it, Uganda is all traumatized. We are yes, for all the wars that we have had, from 62, name it, up to today, and nobody has dealt with the traumas that we have. So women are pushed back because being at the center of nurturing, protecting, recovery,
encouragement,
all that they do, nobody has sat down to de-traumatize them. So that is an aspect that is critical, and for me, I feel government really needs to take it seriously if we have to see that we actually get the genuine peace that we are looking for. Because
how would that look like?
Okay.
Getting us to a point whereby Ugandans are not generally traumatized.
Listen to what they are saying. Integrate what they think they define peace to be part and parcel of the aspect. Deal with the issues they are, I think Dr. Pauline talked about it. Issues of land grabbing. If we don't deal with that, women and men continue being traumatized. If we don't deal with issues like, young girls getting pregnant, getting out of schools, it continues, making women not perform because they are still embedded with all these problems that they have. And I think another issue is recognizing them. Because if you do something forever, you deal with actually every aspect of peace. You prevent, you participate, you deal with recover, and no one is recognizing you. You lose
the encouragement,
the push, and you think that
to do what
nobody
you've been doing
seems
for so long.
to care about what I'm doing, so they tend to think maybe I leave it to that.
At all.
Lastly, I think women are not breaking through because we have stuck to the international definition of peace. Women have found peace is not only putting the guns down. Peace is the way we live, socially, economically, politically. Now you ask the question, why are they not breaking through? If you are economically not really comfortable and you are able to reach out to different communities, you don't have the resources, you will not be able to be recognized. Lastly, we have done so much as women, but we seem not to be listening to what the women are saying. And that is the major problem that we are facing. Let us listen to what women say security is, peace is, and their approach to what they think could end all these challenges we have today.
Well, for you at home who is viewing us, are you a woman? Is your voice not heard? Go to our social media platforms and share your perspective on security and peace in the country. And what do you know about the 1325 resolution? We are celebrating 25 years, so share your experience, share your knowledge, and let's continue the conversation right there on social media. Ms. Angela, I'll come to you. We've been talking about the gaps that are missing in strengthening the movement of the 1325 resolution. We are celebrating 25 years. It could seem long, but it's not that long. We need a century more. So in your perspective, what persistent challenges has government faced in implementing the national action plans on WPS?
Thank you very much. Most of the persistent issues have been raised. Of course, where I sit, the issue of funding is really a major one, because we need peace throughout the country, but we find our programs limited to certain regions that are more prone to conflicts and wars. So that the funding space and the gaps therein is a very big issue for us. Then secondly, the issue of climate change. Climate change is with us. Unless we really take deliberate efforts to conserve our environment, regrow our trees, deal with all sorts of pollution in our country, Mother Nature is going to rebel against us. I know in our third national action plan on women, peace and security, there's a strong element on strategies towards climate action. But this is a role of every Ugandan. We all have a role to play. Government may lead, but all of us as Ugandans, we need to protect Mother Nature before it rebels against us. We need back the trees. We need to have clean homes. We don't need to pollute everywhere. Yeah. In Uganda, when you move around, you find polythenes and food and non-food waste all over the place. We really need to be very disciplined in terms of ensuring that we say no to pollution. Another persistent gap has been in terms of sexual and gender-based violence. As a country, we've managed to reduce physical violence from 50% in 2016 to the current 45. To us, it's a very big achievement.
It is a big achievement.
We celebrate it. And of course, we celebrate all the partners and government that have been leading this work. However, we are waking up to increasing sexual violence. Issues of defilement of the young girls, issues of rape, issues of pornography, and irresponsible use of the media and social media, really irresponsible use of the digital platforms is an issue that we have to deal with, whether we like it or not.
Indeed.
Because it's going to destroy the entire fabric that we have. So those are really critical issues we definitely have to work on as we push for peace. Another one that I would also like to point out is the constant flow of small and light arms into Uganda. There's a constant flow from South Sudan, from Somalia, from DRC, and that destabilizes peace within Uganda, but also peace in the region. I know government is working on that, but of course much more is expected.
Indeed.
We have so many Ugandans who have acquired guns, either legally or illegally. When there's a conflict on the road, people are pulling out guns.
A conflict that doesn't require
exactly.
a gun, indeed.
Yes.
And it is a big problem. And Ms. Angela, I do agree with you, because right now we are looking at what can be done for the next 25 years. And I'll come to you, Doctor. When you look at the resolution, it has been here for 25 years. Looking ahead for the next 25 years and another 25 years, what should be the top priorities to sustain momentum and accountability on women, peace, and the security agenda?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very critical question, which to some extent I mentioned before. Indeed. I already mentioned that from what we've discussed, we see Uganda already have a very strong foundation. So for the next 25 years, I think we need to deepen, I mentioned before, we need to deepen impact, and we need to deepen also adopting to new challenges. And I mentioned some of those. I said we really, one of these is which the Commission I've just mentioned. We need to turn political commitment into financial commitment for the next 25 years. The top priority is, again, we really need to have dedication on funding, which means we need to integrate our women, peace and security priorities directly into national and district budgets. And also, you know, we need to secure more funding from donors if there are those possibilities, but we need to explore local resources. We really, for the next 25 years, we need to make effort on that.
It starts here.
Yes, it has to start here. And also, I mentioned before, we need to take agenda deep, to take the agenda deeper into every district. The commissioner mentioned that so far we have 20 districts which have developed their own national action plan for the implementation of 1325. But maybe we can aim to go to 50 districts in the next 25 years, because we have seen impact, and we have attracted people globally. They've been very interested on the localization agenda, which is taking place in Uganda. So we should aim to expand that in the next 25 years. And also in the next 25 years, again, to emphasize that Uganda is among the countries in the world which have the largest number of the young population. So if we don't invest on the young people in the next 25 years, we are going, there is a danger of losing the investment which have been done so far on women, peace and security. Then what is not counted does not matter. So again, to emphasize, we have the Bureau, the Uganda Bureau of Gender Statistics. We need to see how best we can work with the Bureau to make sure that we become more data-driven, because that matters a lot. Better data collection and analysis on women's roles in peace and security will make our policies smarter and our programs more effective. So we really need to emphasize on that on the next 25 years. And I also mentioned, and the point which Madam Commissioner mentioned about some of these threats that the new threats that we're experiencing as a country. So for the next 25 years, we really need to confront what I call the new frontiers of conflict. Climate security, which have already been mentioned, it's a big threat for us as Africa, for us as Uganda. We need to, again, to emphasize to plant more trees and to make sure we tackle those challenges. We really need to apply gender lens on these emerging threats. And the digital theft, which Commissioner also have talked about, and also the sisters here who have spoken, they've talked about the digital theft, which is increasing in the region. So we have to see in the next 25 years, how are we going to strengthen and to address those issues. Violent extremism is another thing which is eating our society. The Commissioner have talked about the increasing ownership of guns and so on.
Unnecessary use of them.
Yes, a lot of them. So we really need to make sure that we address those issues. Uganda current national action plan already recognizes this. So that is a consolation. So the priority is to stay vigilant and to ensure that our response actively protect and include women.
Okay. Marian, I'll come to you. To what extent have Uganda's transitional justice mechanisms addressed the needs of women survivors of conflict-related sexual violence? I know you mentioned this earlier, but you could give us a little bit of a recap. And going forward for the next 25 years, how can Uganda deepen the integration between peace building, justice, and survivor participations? The 3 Ps that Angela mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Idris. Yes, as I previously mentioned, I think both conflict-related sexual violence and gender-based violence are issues that we're still grappling with as a society. Yeah. And we've already had a discussion about what peace means. And we've seen that even the absence of peace within the families has an impact in the communities, in societies, in schools, in other institutions. Yeah. And so I think first paramount is education. We need education and awareness about the drivers of GBV, the impact of GBV, and its implication for us, not just as communities, but as a society. I think there was a statistic that says Uganda loses 77 billion shillings annually as a result of GBV. That's a very big figure, which I think as a country we really need to take
seriously
cognizance of, yes, especially in a time when we're really lacking adequate resources.
Yeah.
And so if that is one way in which we can ensure that we have more active citizens contributing to society, it's something we definitely need to take cognizance of. And then I also mentioned the holistic approach. We've seen the impact of mental health and psychosocial challenges on violence within communities and within families, unaddressed needs. These days, it seems almost every other week, there are stories in the newspapers about individuals committing suicide because of unaddressed psychosocial needs. And I think that's another area that both government and partners need to take very serious note of and find ways of addressing. And that applies not just to survivors of violence, but to us as communities as a whole. You know, you see headlines saying that a quarter of Ugandans are suffering from mental health concerns, mental health issues. That's something that should concern all of us, because it means if there are 5 of us here, it means at least one of us is grappling with one of those issues, and that will affect all of us in one way, shape, or form.
Mariam, please do not encourage the viewers on guessing who it is.
No, but of course, I think it's helpful to look at statistics like that. We've talked about the impact of data. Sometimes you see numbers and they're very abstract, but when you think about it like that, it means if you're sitting with 4 friends, at least one of them is dealing with an issue. So how are we, both as individuals, as friends, as family members, supporting each other through these processes? But then also, do we have the institutional mechanism so that when people feel they need help, where do they go? Where are those services? Is the information readily available that, if you really feel that you're facing an issue, you can call this number or you can go to this place? And again, the holistic approach for us, we've seen that for survivors of sexual violence, you'll find that somebody is still dealing with medical conditions that, as a result of whether it's rape or for many of them having given birth when, they were too young. And the nearest health center is not able to provide that kind of service, or even the nearest hospital. People have to cross regions in order to do that. So I wish it was possible for, I think, the Ministry of Health to also, when they're designing and putting these centers in place, say, okay, what are the specific needs in that area? And are we able to ensure that we bring the services that are necessary for that specific community closer to the people?
Okay.
Yes, and then, so you mentioned in terms of going forward, I think a key outcome of this is we've seen that we need to have women at the center of these processes. Women need to be active participants in designing these processes, in saying, this is what we feel we need, this is what's missing in our communities, and this is how they can best be addressed. Ruth talked about the importance of people feeling seen. People need to feel seen, they need to be heard. Exactly. In transitional justice, we call it acknowledgement. For some people, they say all they need to know is that they say, I went through this, and somebody says, I recognize that. And for the state to also take responsibility where they have failed and say, we are sorry we failed in this way, and these are the ways in which we are remedying or repairing that situation.
Quite important. When you look at the 3 Ps, prevention, participation, and partnership, this is where we go. And Ruth, I want to bring you into the conversation as we conclude. As an activist, what is your one appeal to government and partners as Uganda enters the next chapter of women, peace, and security agenda?
Only one.
Just because we have a few minutes.
Okay, I'll just bullet them. Embrace informal peace building into the formal. That way you have brought
recognition.
That informal to that recognition. One, everybody has talked about the resource envelope. All that we said that has happened is because we were resourced. And today I sit and look at my colleagues who are running, who are in civil society, and I feel sad because they have so much they can do, but they don't have money. And I want what Dr. Pauline has said. Can this resource envelope start here Why do we always think that the money has to come from abroad to deal with the peace issues in our home? We need to see that. The third aspect, UN Security Council resolution is such a powerful resolution. I think I would want us to move from rhetoric to real practice. And here I'm not only talking about our government, but the international community must really move away from rhetoric. When you read that resolution, the three P's, the 1R, when you go there, it is women who are participating, who are promoting rights of women, who are preventing the violence. And even recovery, it is the women who are doing all that. But now when it comes to going into positions of who is going to make the decision on this, then the women lose out. Why? Why would they take all that we say and put it in their English, because the English is known by a few, when actually the woman at the grassroots is the one who is doing all that it takes. My final point is that the business of peace and security is done at the community level. It's not done here in boardrooms. Yeah. So can we now give the power back to those women, because they have solutions, they have redefined what peace is, to include everything that a human being needs, and also acknowledge that, yes, they know what they are saying.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Because they have experienced it. And as Dr. said earlier, starting with you, you are the first igniting factor to making change in community. Ms. Angela, as we conclude, in 30 seconds, what's your food for thought for the viewers?
I would want to end with the slogan that when women lead, peace follows. And of course, that should give us the challenge of committing to genuinely promote women's participation, protection, leadership, and of course, partnerships in peace building in Uganda. Thank you.
Dr. Paulina, food for thought?
Yes, again, when women lead, peace follows. And as UN Women, we pledge our unwavering support to advancing women gender equality and women's empowerment. We will continue to advocate for women's voices to be heard and for women to make sure that women are sitting on those tables where decisions are being made. Thank you.
I would end by saying that ensuring the participation and perspective of women and girls within peace processes is a positive impact, not just for women and girls, but for men and boys and society as a whole. And therefore, we owe it to ourselves to ensure that we create sustainable peace by engendering all these processes.
Ruth, food for thought.
Mine is, it will come to pass when women are peaceful and they are at the table. Because they have it all, they are able to bring the peace in our communities. Respect them, provide for them, and listen to them.
Well, what is your say you back at home? Go to our social media platforms, look out for NTV Uganda and share your experience, your expertise, your knowledge, and just share within community, because guess what? It starts with you. If you don't make the change, then we shall not have peace. We shall not have the lovely community that you call home. Now, 25 years ago, the world made a promise through the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 to put women at the heart of peace and security. Today, Uganda stands as a living example of what's possible when the promise is honored through leadership, resilience, and a shared vision. As we look ahead, may this anniversary not just mark the years behind us, but also ignite years ahead, and for more just peaceful and inclusive society, for you to have your children and children's children be in a country that is happy, that has no mental health issues, but a country that you can be proud of. Well, my name is Idris Matusegawa, and thank you to our distinguished panel, our partners, UN Women, the Ministry of Gender, ICTJ, and Civil Society, and to you, our viewers, for joining us, and my panelists. Again, thank you, ladies, for just this very important conversation. It's been wonderful. And for you, I remind you, if you missed our start of the conversation, go to our website, www.ntv.co.ug, and look out for this conversation. You can watch it from start to end. Well, thank you, and catch you next time. Goodbye.